Welcome to episode 153 of the Whole Circle podcast, and today we're speaking to Vani Hari from Food Babe.
Welcome to the Whole Circle podcast, a show about health, wellness, food and fun. So join us, Tracy and Joe, as we interview some of the world's most amazing health and wellness experts and find out how to live your best life ever. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, so sit back and enjoy the show.
When you say that, do you have like the little jingle in your mind?
A little bit. At the end.
I think about it.
Anyway, right. Vani, she is incredible.
Yeah.
So if you guys have never heard of her, I think you're living under a rock. Her website's called Food Babe. She's probably one of the first food activists. I think we should call ourselves a food activist, by the way.
Okay.
She's one of the first food activists that we certainly started to follow. She has done some incredible things over her journey. Biggest things are fighting the food industry right where it hurts.
Yeah, so she's based in America. However, Australia and our ingredients over here are very, very similar to America.
Yeah.
So everything that she publishes, all her books, her brand new book, Feeding You Lies, is now out. And her other book, it's all still very relevant to Australia. And yeah, she's massive. She's done some amazing stuff. She's managed to fight Kraft, and she's managed to fight Subway. Starbucks, yes. And the reason when we say fight them, we mean she's managed to influence, she's influenced them enough through petitions and her Food Babe army, as she calls them, which are people like you, her followers that follow us, they're followers that follow her Food Babe army. She's managed to get petitions together with hundreds of thousands of signatures, and she's managed to influence these companies to change their ingredients, because we've spoken about it before, but in Europe, they need to put a food label on their ingredients when they contain some certain food colours and a mix of sodium benzoate. And unfortunately in Australia and America, that doesn't need to happen.
No.
And so Kraft in there, I mean, she talks about it during this podcast as well, but basically Kraft had their food colours in, which is what is in Australia as well, and in the US. But then in Europe, they were using paprika and natural food dye. Why is that not like that over here?
Why don't I like it everywhere? It's the same as magnums. They're allowed to still put a natto in our magnum, and then they don't have a natto in anywhere else.
It's just, it blows my mind.
Yeah,
like even to this day, it still blows my mind that we are allowed to eat this stuff, that children are allowed to eat this stuff.
But our government lets it in our food though.
6-month-old babies with their first foods have some ingredients in the little jars that just shouldn't be in there.
It's awful. So go grab yourself a copy, Feeding You Lies. It's awesome. It's basically Amazon.com, but I would imagine Detox or any big bookstore like that, any big department store, you'd be able to order it in. It's from a massive publisher, so you would definitely be able to get it in any major bookstore. Go and ask around. Go and get yourself a copy. Have a really good read, because it's amazing.
We'll pop the link to this book and all the show notes over on our website, additive-freelifestyle.com/podcast153. So it's additive-freelifestyle.com/podcast153. Name and shame. Like, she does a good job. She's got some balls. She's got some guts, because it would take a lot of thick skin to write a book like this, because she really talks about how the food companies are manipulating us into buying their products and claiming that these products are food worthy.
She also talks in there though, like you were saying, about how food companies get people to come and attack you on your blog. Like we've had, I don't know if we've had that actually happen, but we've certainly had people write really negative things on our blog posts and things that we've shared. So she talks about that and why.
Called astroturfing.
Yeah, and why that happens. She talks about how she's been targeted. People know her home address. It's really scary, some of the stuff that has happened to her, to try and get her to stop publishing this sort of stuff So yeah, hats off to Vani. She is amazing. The other one in there that I read was like emails that she's uncovered and through the Freedom of Information Act and things like that, and she's been able to get and source emails from companies to companies so that they all banding together and attacking and trying to feed us even more lies and stuff about the food industry. So it's a pretty interesting read.
Yeah, she talks about flavours versus natural flavours as well, which I think we can't talk about enough, even though we might have spoken about it before. I think that it's something that could be spoken about every day and you learn something new. She also has a detox, not a program, but a 48-hour Toxin Takedown. So this is really, really great that when you're ready to go additive-free, how to do it, you know, simple ways that you can do it. So that's in this book as well. But yeah, grab yourself a copy, additivefreelifestyle.com/podcast153, and you'll find the links over there. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, Vani. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to hear.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's so nice to meet both of you, and it's incredible. The internet brings us all together no matter where we live. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. Joe's got your book here.
I do.
We've got some questions, and we're going to get through this in half an hour because I know you've got another appointment to get to. So let's get cracking.
Yeah, so Feeding You Lies. It's a wonderful book, Vani. You've done a really good job. And you have some guts writing this. Like, you are naming and shaming the whole way through it, and I think that it's absolutely brilliant. It's a lot of people would be scared to write something like this, so well done to you to start with. First of all, if you could just let everyone know who you are and what you do, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my website, foodbabe.com, back in 2011 as a result of just growing up with a ton of health issues and figuring out that the majority of health issues, pretty much every single one, was related to what I was eating. And when I started to clean my diet up and eliminate processed foods, I started to look like a different person. I not only lost weight, but I went off every single one of my prescription drugs. And, everyone around me really couldn't believe this transformation. And so they asked me to start a blog, and I started it. And at first I wanted to call it eathealthyliveforever.com. And my husband, who's the tech geek in the family, thought that was a horrible name. He said, no one's going to remember that. And so he came up with the name Food Babe, bought it off auction for $10, and I started blogging. And at first, I started blogging to like my basic friends and the people that I knew at work that followed me, and like, my mom. And slowly but surely, I started to realize that there's this community out there of people who really wanted to know the truth about what was in their food. And they didn't know what was in their food. And they were like me, just walking around blindfolded, not really understanding what was in the American food supply and really trusting of the American food system. And so I used my research skills that I learned in high school, where I was a top tier debater, where, back then, I'm almost 40 now. So back then we didn't have Google or anything like that. We had to go to the library, look at the microfiche, print out large things of information and carry them in big boxes across the world to do these debate tournaments. And so I learned how to research back then. And so I did the same thing in terms of my health. And on the blog, I started to research all of the things that I thought were healthy but actually weren't, and started to investigate these phenomenons on the blog. And the blog started to go viral, and so viral that the food companies that I investigated started to reach out to me and start to either, try to get me to go away, or some would actually invite me to their headquarters to do some kind of consulting and really teach them about what the consumer actually wants. And so I decided that I would quit my regular job, which I was a consultant in the financial institutions, and realized that I had a different calling. And so I quit my job cold turkey to make Food Babe my full-time career and to be an activist full-time. And as soon as I quit my job and I devoted 100% of my energy to changing the food industry and educating the public about what the food industry was doing, food companies started to respond like crazy. Not only did the petitions that we start to really take hold in terms of getting big multi-billion-dollar food companies like Kraft and General Mills and Subway and Starbucks to change their policies and their ingredients, but a whole new wave of consciousness started to occur in people where they demanded less additives in their food, cleaner versions of their food, and it was just an amazing thing that has been this part of this movement that I've been part of. And back in 2015, I released my first book, The Food Babe Way, and it was a great success. It was a New York Times best-selling book, and it changed a lot of people's lives. But what it also did was it opened up a Pandora's box of critics that attacked me because they wanted me to go away, because I was really, inspiring a lot of people to make different purchasing decisions. And so the food industry started to lose a lot of money, not only from the loss in market share, but also from the fact that they had to make these changes. One great example is Kraft. Kraft in the United States was using yellow 5 and yellow 6, probably in Australia as well. And in the UK, they're using beta carotene and paprika to color their Kraft mac and cheese. And they were using these more natural dyes because in the UK, there's a policy where if you use an artificial food dye, you have to use a warning label that says may cause adverse effects on activity and attention in children. And so Kraft, instead of putting a warning label on their product and their products overseas, they said, you know what, we're not going to put the warning label on there, so we'll change the product. We'll make the product look the same, taste the same, and use natural ingredients. But the people who don't know about this risk or consequence, the people in Australia, the people in the US, we're going to continue using these very controversial dyes that are linked to hyperactivity in children. And I felt like that was one of the most unethical, immoral policies of any corporation. Once a corporation understands that there's a risk, a health risk associated with their product, and they know they can make it better and safer for people, they should do that across the board no matter where you live. Mm-hmm. And because of this situation, I started a petition with a friend of mine from 100 Days of Real Food, and she and I, it was amazing what we were able to accomplish with this petition. And I even went to the headquarters of Kraft and delivered these petitions. And eventually Kraft had to change their, millions and millions of boxes of Kraft macaroni change across the board had to change as a result of this campaign. And so they lost a lot of money, and they lost actually a lot of market share to another company called Annie's, who's actually bought by General Mills, that didn't use artificial food dyes. And so, I was really hitting the bottom line of these giant companies. And so they couldn't attack my message because my message was so clean and was the truth, but they could attack me as the messenger. And so they made up a lot of labels for me and tried to paint me as a pseudoscientist, a fear monger, a person who is like exaggerating the claims behind some of the research of these additives, that these additives are completely safe, that they're FDA approved, which is the Food and Drug Administration here in the United States, that the government oversees our food. They're generally regarded as safe, but there's this assumption that everything on grocery store shelves is safe, and that's not true. There are tons of chemicals in our food supply that American food companies are using, not only in America, but everywhere across the globe, that they have invented themselves, and they've invented for one sole purpose, and that is to improve the bottom line of their industry. Whatever industry they're in, if they're candy, soda, packaged goods, whatever, if they invent these chemicals, they're usually inventing them to try to sell more product. And they're not really inventing those chemicals to improve our health. And the public largely has been in the dark about this until recently, in the last several years, with the emergence of social media and the ability to share this information for the first time in history, really, on the internet. I mean, no one knew, like, for example, what was in Starbucks famous drinks until I was able to blow the lid on that and really convince a barista to show me the ingredients behind the scenes and then reveal them online. And then I eventually got Starbucks to finally post the ingredients in their drinks online for the first time in history. Same with the beer manufacturers. A lot of this information has been hidden from the public. And so after my first book came out, I received a lot of criticism, and I became the target of a campaign online to try to discredit me. And instead of allowing them to do that, I decided to call them out. And that's really what this book is all about, Feeding You Lies. It's about how the food industry uses independent third-party experts to convince us that we're too stupid to learn about nutrition, that we don't have the resources, that we have to trust them, we have to trust the food industry, that we need them in order to survive. But what this book teaches you is that you can actually become your own health investigator. You can learn the tactics and tricks and the entire playbook of the food industry. And not only can you learn that, but you can follow very simply. I had this amazing thing at the end of the book. It's called a 3-question detox, where it's the most simple 3 questions you ask yourself before you sit down for a meal, and it will just fundamentally change the way you look at everything you're eating. And I want people to realize that nutrition isn't complicated. The only people that have made it complicated is the food industry. And and so really it's very simple, and I want people to realize that they have the power to take that back.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. Just a quick question. So we get some criticism from other parents, like other mums and dads out there, for some of the topics that we put out on social media. So not so much the big companies yet, and I'm sure it's going to happen one day. How do you handle that? Do you get that as well?
Yeah. What kind of things do they say?
And you're being the fun police, and you're depriving our children, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that some of those are AstroTurf comments, which I talk about this phenomenon in the book, which is actually a fake grassroots movement to shame people who believe that people should know the truth about these additives and the risks associated with them. And the people that are out there trying to shame you are the people who are really being funded by the food industry behind the scenes. Now, if there's a slew of comments that come out of nowhere, it's likely an AstroTurf campaign. Now, if it's one here or there, they could have been actually influenced by some of these AstroTurf kind of comments that you'll see in the media when different things are happening. Like, for example, if people want to put tax on soda, or they want to put calories on menu plans or something like that. There are organizations that will go against these policies to say that, Big Brother is watching over us. We should have the ultimate responsibility to do these decisions on our own, when really we're the ones paying for the health insurance and other things, the health costs for the people's demise that we're experiencing right now in terms of the amount of disease people are experiencing, obesity, heart disease, diabetes. There's an epidemic of disease and cancer in the world, especially in the Western world. And so, we really have the responsibility to tell the truth about what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I found astroturfing really interesting, because I'd never actually heard of that before. So I really enjoyed that chapter in the book. The other thing that I want you to talk about that you mentioned in the book is flavors versus natural flavors. And we've certainly shared a lot of this on our blog as well, but it was really good to read it as well. So can you explain, pretty much most packet food has that word flavors, even baby food, and natural flavors. So what are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why the food industry uses natural flavors is to make food that would otherwise not taste good taste good. So food that is dead, processed on the store shelves that literally would not have that vibration of a real whole food, make it taste like real whole food. And the way the food industry does this is in a lot of different ways. For example, they'll take yogurt, for example, and say, hey, this is a blueberry yogurt, but instead of actually adding enough blueberries for it to taste like blueberry yogurt, they use blueberry natural flavor, which uses the 1/1,000,000th best essence of a blueberry in a chemical form that's created in a laboratory to trick your brain into thinking you're actually consuming real blueberries. But the problem with that is when you think you're consuming real blueberries, your body also sends a signal of like, I should be getting that nutrition as well. I should be getting the fiber and all the different miraculous antioxidants and other components that make up a blueberry, but your body actually is left without that. And so your body is actually wondering what the hell is going on. And what this does is it creates a situation where your taste buds are completely hijacked and your body doesn't know what's real and what's not. And so as a result, you start to overeat, you start to crave food that you shouldn't be craving, you create addiction to certain flavors and products. And as someone who knows about the dangers of processed foods and the ingredients in processed foods, I think it's very important that people understand where these flavors are coming from. Now, there's also artificial flavors. Now, there's natural flavors and artificial flavors. Artificial flavors can be made from coal tar, petroleum, all sorts of different chemicals. Actually, 7 were just recently banned by the FDA because they were linked to cancer, and food companies have up to 2 years to remove these artificial food dyes. So right now, people are consuming these artificial food dyes, and I have a suspicion that they're mostly in candy. So kids are mostly eating these artificial food dyes that are linked to cancer. But then on top of that, you have this other flavoring called natural flavor that sounds very like, okay, it sounds great, it's natural, it's probably not that bad for me, it sounds very innocuous. But when you look and see how these things are created in a laboratory to trick your brain, you start to realize they're using the same science and the scientists that allowed the tobacco industry to get away with making their products addictive. And we see where that went. And so it's really important for us as the consumer to know what we're eating. And so when you see natural flavor or artificial flavor or other flavors added to your products, you need to ask yourself, is this something I really want to be eating on a normal basis? Is this something that I want to bring into my home and feed to my kids? Is this a baby food that I'm going to give to my kid day in and day out? I would say no. I would say put it back on the shelf. Choose whole, real, unprocessed food to give your family every single day. And some of these products, I know they're fun to eat. I mean, there's a product that I love. They're these Annie's chocolate bunnies, and they're organic and everything's good. It's USDA certified organic or whatever organic. I'm sure you guys probably have this product in Australia as well. And it's organic. But if I eat one, that's not happening. I'll eat the whole box because of the way it's engineered and the flavor profile and then the natural flavors that they add to it. I just want to keep eating them. And so even as someone who's as dialed in as me about food, it takes over my body too. So
yeah, that's crazy. What they're designed to do. So also in your book, you talk about how big companies like Coca-Cola and those really big brands actually hire nutritionists and dietitians and people that we see as food advocates as well to promote these products in actually being healthy, like Coca-Cola bringing out the smaller can of Coke and how good that is because now we're drinking less of it. And
the mango flavored or something. I saw you did a post the other day. I don't know if we've got that here in Australia, but that intrigued me.
Yeah, and so like this, it kind of just doesn't make sense. We're humans. We're meant to be thriving. We're meant to be healthy. We're meant to just be eating food from the land. It just doesn't make sense that all these chemicals are going into something that we are allowed to eat, does it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really sinister what's actually happening, and that's what Feeding You Lies is all about, is how to recognize what's in your food, how to understand what's going on so that you make the best decisions for yourself when you buy something on the shelf.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome. I've had a skim through it. We only got it the other day, so I haven't had a really good chance to have a look through it myself, but there's so much in here that I like. Jo's been highlighting her head off, and I'm going to highlight in a different colour, I think, so I can have my bits and she can have her bits, because it is really interesting. So hopefully you guys can go and get yourself a copy on Amazon. We know that it's on Amazon Australia as well, but if you can't find it there, then head into one of your big major department stores or bookstores, because you'll be able to order it in, absolutely. So go and check it out, and yeah, it's an awesome book, and I love how you've, like Jo said at the start, you've named and shamed, you've taken them down, you've put it in layman's terms, it's easy to understand. It doesn't matter that it's written by an American, we can understand it here in Australia, I'm just saying. Yeah. And go check it out, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. We've got a lot of work to do ahead of us, but books like this make a massive difference, and you're impacting the world, so well done, and thank you for doing that as well.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we will pop all the details to this in the show notes. Now, where can people find you, Vani?
You can go to foodbabe.com and sign up for my newsletter there, and you'll be informed about everything that's going on.
Awesome. Yeah, foodbabe.com. All right.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a question, actually. Your new supplement range, can we get that in Australia?
Not yet. Not yet. I don't know if, Amazon Australia probably doesn't have it yet, but it is on Amazon US now. But I hope soon it will be worldwide. It'd be great to send you guys some products too.
I have to order some. Tracy's got a friend that lives over there, so we tend to get everything sent to her house, and then she posts it to us.
It's a bit dodgy.
You probably can't do that.
I don't know here. I would be TGA approved and Australian. I don't know. Anyway,
don't say we do that. I mean, as bad, like, this is the ridiculous thing. We've got TGO over here, and they're allowed to put all these chemicals in foods, and they're allowed to sell it to babies and adults and whoever, but yet we can't get some really nice natural products like yourselves in. It just doesn't make sense. So anyway,
crazy.
All right,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Bye.
Bye.